The silence of Daranis. The silence was the first warning. Daranis, a lush Terran colony world orbiting Tau Ceti, was home to 8 million civilians. Scientists, families, terraformers, artists, humans who had come not to conquer, but to create. For 12 years, it had been a shining example of peace between humans and the galactic community. Then, without a sound, it disappeared. No distress signals. No last calls. No survivors. The last image from orbit was a static-laced view of the capital city, Halden's Reach. The sky was orange with fire. Then the feed went black. The Earth Council called an emergency session with the Galactic Assembly. Humanity's ambassador, Elena Voss, stood before the 1,000 species of the conclave, demanding answers. This was no accident, she said, her voice cold. Daranis had no military installations. It posed no threat. It was a civilian world. The Zorkel delegation remained silent, their segmented armor gleaming under the chamber lights. The evidence was damning. The ion signatures in orbit matched Zorkel warcruisers. Debris recovered from scout drones bore Zorkel alloy codes. But the Council hesitated. Councillor Lurex of the Valari Fold clicked his mandibles. Are we certain the humans did not provoke this? Perhaps a rebel cell among them. Elena stared, lips pressed into a thin line. Children were burned alive in schools. Is that a proportional response? A silence followed, long and shameful. The Zorkel finally spoke. Daranis sat in contested space. Your settlers knew the risk. No, Elena whispered. They believed in peace. Because we did. She turned and walked out, her final words etched into the minds of every delegate in the hall. We tried to be better. You've chosen to remind us of what we were. 3 days later, a data packet leaked to the interstellar nets. Satellite footage, hacked from a Zorkel fleet system by Terran Black Ops, was broadcast across the galaxy. It showed the final hours of Daranis. Orbital plasma strikes leveled entire cities. Escape ships were targeted as they fled the surface. Biological agents were dropped in rural settlements, followed by drone harvesters collecting organs from the fallen. The last image, a child, coughing blood, dragging a younger sibling into a shattered med center, whispering, "It'll be okay," until the signal cut. No one spoke of provocation after that. The galaxy watched in collective horror. And Earth changed. In a dark chamber beneath Geneva, the Terran High Command met behind closed doors. President Amina Chen stood at the head of the table, eyes hard, fists clenched. We founded the Confederation to avoid becoming what we once were, she said quietly. But this was a massacre. Her defense secretary, Admiral Rourke, nodded grimly. We have the means. We've just lacked the will. Chin looked around the room. No one dissented. Not anymore. Then let history remember this day. She leaned forward and pressed her thumb to a black panel embedded in the table. Ares Protocol. Activated. Across the stars, hidden fleets stirred awake. AI war drones long mothballed came online. Blacksite Labs began rapid synthesis of neural disruption agents and strategic nanoplague cocktails. Human satellites reoriented, not to observe, but to aim. Within the hour, a single message was broadcast on all Terran networks. Earth's response to genocide: now we will stop being humane. In the outer colonies, fear turned to fury. Volunteers flooded recruitment stations. Old soldiers unburied medals and prepared to fight again. A new generation, raised in peace, now read about Earth's darkest hours, not as cautionary tales, but as manuals. The Council issued warnings. Sanctions. Please. But humanity did not respond. Instead, a transmission from the void reached the Zorkel Dominion. You mistook mercy for weakness. You will not live to regret it. Back in the ruins of Daranis, among the ashes, a single Terran drone wandered through the silence. It paused near the med center, scanning for DNA traces. It found two. A child's body. And the sibling she tried to save. The drone uploaded the footage. Earth's military AI archived it in a new file. Case file Ares 001, proof of cause. Status: vengeance pending. Operation Black Dawn. The Terran Confederation had always worn diplomacy like armor, layered over old scars. For over a century, humanity's place in the Galactic Council had been that of peacekeeper and builder. It had taken decades to prove that Earth, once infamous for its violent past, could rise above it. The horrors of history had been buried deep in vaults marked, "Never Again." But now the vaults were open, and something old had crawled out. Operation Black Dawn began with silence. Not a shot fired. Not a scream heard. 3 Zorkel border outposts vanished from long-range scanners. Patrols were lost without distress signals. When recon ships arrived, they found only drifting hulls, vessels cut open like fruit, crews missing, no signs of life. Not even blood. Inside the ships were messages, burned into steel in multiple languages. Justice is blind. But we are not. Back on Earth, the footage of Daranis continued to circulate, not edited, not censored. Entire media networks refused to take it down, even under council orders. The people wanted to remember. They wanted to feel the rage. And so they did. Across human systems, industry shifted from civilian growth to military supply. Factories retooled themselves to produce next-generation weapons. Quantum AI constructs, once forbidden from warfare, were reassigned to new command roles. Earth didn't need to build an army. It simply unleashed one it had hidden in the shadows for a century. In deep orbit over the burned colony of Pharaohs 6, a Terran ghost fleet prepared for the first retaliation strike. These ships had no insignias. Their captains were all declared legally dead. Their mission was simple: make the Zorkel remember fear. Strike Team Echo, composed of elite operatives trained in Black Ops, was deployed on the Zorkel slave world of Drask. What followed was not a battle. It was a surgical extinction. The Zorkel High Overseers were assassinated in their sleep. Fuel depots detonated in coordinated cascades. And just before sunrise, every communication tower on Drask began broadcasting a looped Terran message. This world has been judged. This is not revenge. This is correction. But they didn't kill everyone. In fact, humans left the enslaved species alive and armed. And they watched, without interference, as the chains of generations shattered overnight. The Galactic Council responded with outrage. Formal complaints flooded the assembly. Speeches were made. Sanctions drafted. But they had no real leverage left. Ambassador Elena Voss returned once, briefly, to deliver Earth's position. We offered peace. We signed your treaties. We obeyed your laws, even when they cost us lives. And when genocide came, you asked us to wait. She stepped forward, her voice now ice. Now we have remembered who we are. And you will remember, too. She left behind a data slate containing a classified directive now public. Ares Protocol, Section 4. Asymmetrical Neutralization. Target: Zorkel Infrastructure. Objective: collapse all military, economic, and cultural foundations. Method: total. In the Zorkel Dominion, panic spread like wildfire. Planets began blacking out their networks, hoping to disappear from Terran sensors. Civilian transports fled toward neutral space. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion declared martial law. But it was too late. Operation Black Dawn wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about precision horror. Each attack left behind messages, sometimes carved into the walls, sometimes broadcast in code. We see what you cherish. We know where it sleeps. We are already inside. A high-ranking Zorkel general was captured in the outer systems. His interrogation was not conducted by humans, but by an AI named Juno, designed to simulate the emotional torment of guilt, memory, and legacy. After 6 hours, he broke, begging not for mercy, but for understanding. "Why are you doing this?" he wept. Juno answered in the general's native dialect. "You taught us that mercy is weakness. We are only your students." Back on Earth, protests against the war were almost non-existent. The footage from Daranis had seen to that. Even those who hated violence could not argue with the grief. The raw, aching need to never let it happen again. In the classrooms, history teachers no longer skipped the darkest parts of humanity's past. They taught them with clear eyes. "This," one professor told his students, is what happens when peace is met with slaughter. This is why you must remember. Because forgetting is what led to Daranis. In orbit, the Butcher fleet was nearly ready. A force unlike anything since Earth's pre-Confederation era. No banners. No mercy. Just resolve. One final message was sent to the Zorkel High Command. It was brief. No threats. No rhetoric. Just one cold line. This was your choice. You don't get to choose what comes next. The Butcher Fleet. The Butcher Fleet had no name in Earth's official records. No registry. No call signs. Its ships bore no emblems, no flags, no color. Just matte black hulls shaped for one purpose: eradication. They didn't broadcast identification signals. They didn't respond to hails. They simply appeared and ended civilizations. The Galactic Council called them monsters. But they weren't monsters. They were human. When Earth activated the Ares Protocol, most of the galaxy believed it to be a show of force, a temporary backlash from grief, an expression of rage. They were wrong. It was a doctrine, a philosophy, a clear declaration. Mercy is reserved for the innocent. You forfeited that right. At the center of the new doctrine stood the Butcher Fleet, a collection of vessels designed not for war, but for systemic collapse. Every ship was equipped with AI-driven targeting algorithms capable of identifying power nodes, food supply chains, communication cores, and cultural archives. They didn't destroy planets. They destroyed what made them live. The first strike came at Araktul, a Zorkel cultural archive world. There were no major military assets. No active battleships. Just temples, libraries, museums. Places where history slept. At 0400 standard, the sky burned. Terran kinetic rods, dense metal slugs traveling at orbital velocity, punched through atmosphere and shattered thousands of years of knowledge in minutes. Temples reduced to ash. Data cores melted into glass. No warnings. No speeches. Just silence, then ruin. The message was clear. You erased Daranis. Now we erase what you are. Back at the Galactic Council, panic turned to desperation. Delegates from neutral species begged Earth to stop, to return to diplomacy. They reminded humanity of treaties, codes of conduct, and ethics charters. Earth's ambassador Voss answered via secure transmission. You watched Daranis die. You signed no charter to stop it. Don't invoke laws now. The feed cut. Earth didn't speak again. In the Zorkel core worlds, fear overtook pride. Military academies shut down. Generals resigned. Colonists fled outer systems, praying they weren't marked for correction. Zorkel propaganda now showed them not as conquerors, but as victims. But humanity didn't target civilians. They targeted everything but civilians. Power grids. Starport logistics. Navigation beacons. Sanitation infrastructure. Then they waited. Watched populations collapse on their own. No Terran soldier fired a shot. But each fleet left behind a signature. A single Earth flag, burned at the edges. And the phrase, "This is what you made us." Aboard the flagship TNS Adrestia, Commander Kira Voss stood before the tactical display of Sector 9H. 5 Zorkel planets. All within jump range. Her officers waited for orders. She said nothing for a long time. Her eyes weren't on the targets, but on the last image from Daranis, still fixed in the corner of her screen, 2 children curled under rubble. She finally spoke. Do it. By week's end, 3 Zorkel sectors had fallen. Not by conquest. Not by ground invasion. But through precision collapse. In response, the Zorkel launched their own fleets. They didn't come back. The Terran AI-led defense networks used adaptive countermeasures so advanced that Zorkel ships were destroyed before they crossed the gravity well. Those who survived often surrendered. And those who did, they were handed back. Alive. Unharmed. With a warning. We will not become you. But we will unmake you. Some in the Council tried to label Earth's actions as genocide. A few voices pushed for a joint military strike. But none volunteered ships. They remembered Daranis, too. And they knew, deep down, that Earth hadn't even begun. On the 28th day of Operation Black Dawn, a Council intelligence drone intercepted a hidden transmission. It was short, coded, voice only. The speaker, an unknown human commander. The message was chilling in its simplicity. This is not revenge. Revenge ends. This is consequence. The Zorkel homeworld, Prime Kel, began full planetary lockdown. No traffic in or out. A planetary shield came online, a relic from an ancient war. One they hoped still worked. It didn't matter. Earth wasn't coming for battle. They were coming for memory. All Zorkel history, all culture, all ego, they would watch it unravel, one world at a time, until only silence remained. And if they begged, Earth would offer no answers. No mercy. Only this. You broke us. And now we remember how to break back. The final silence. The Zorkel homeworld stood alone. Prime Kel, once the seat of a proud and brutal empire, was now a fortress under siege, not by armies, but by inevitability. Every trade route had collapsed. Every ally had withdrawn. Even internal communication was fractured. Across the planet, leaders gathered in bunkers beneath scorched cities, surrounded by fear and denial. They won't destroy us, said Supreme Strategist Ikvar. They seek revenge, not extinction. But he was wrong. It was never about extinction. It was about removal. In orbit, Earth's butcher fleet didn't open fire. They didn't drop bombs or land troops. Instead, they broadcast a signal, one encoded with a neural subharmonic only Zorkel biology could perceive. At first, it caused unease. Then dread. Then something worse. Memories. The neural signal hijacked the Zorkel nervous system, unlocking suppressed guilt, traumatic recollections, and ancestral shame encoded in genetic memory. It was Earth's final weapon, not one of steel, but of truth. Across Prime Kel, civilians collapsed in the streets, weeping from images they had never seen but now remembered. Cities burned, not from bombs, but from panic, riots, collapse. And above them, Earth watched. Silently. Back on Earth, there was no celebration. President Amina Chen stood before a global broadcast, her expression somber. "This is not a victory," she said. "There is no honor in what we've done, only necessity. We are not proud. But we are finished." For the first time since Daranis, the war ended. Not with surrender, but with silence. On Prime Kel, a final transmission was received by the remnants of the Zorkel High Command. A human child's voice, gentle, unbroken. "We used to believe in peace. You made us remember fear. Now you will remember what fear made us." There was no reply. There never would be. A year later, the butcher fleet was gone. Dissolved. Scrapped. Its commanders retired, its AI systems purged. Earth returned to the council chambers, not to boast, but to warn. Ambassador Elena Voss stood before the Thousand Worlds once more. "We have buried our past once already," she said. "You made us dig it up again. If you ever force our hand like that again, there won't be anything left to bury." And then she added, quietly, "Mercy is a choice. Don't make us choose otherwise." The hall remained silent. Across the galaxy, Earth began rebuilding. Quietly, carefully. The Confederation offered aid to species freed by the collapse of the Zorkel regime. Reclamation ships returned to the ruins of Daranis and began planting seeds among the ash. A new monument was built where Halden's Reach once stood. Not made of steel, but of living trees, intertwined around a glowing core that held the names of every soul lost. Above it, a single phrase. "We were humane. And we will be again." In classrooms across Earth, children learned both stories, Daranis and the Butcher Fleet. One a tragedy, the other a reckoning. They were not taught to glorify war. They were taught to remember why it happens. Meanwhile, deep within a secure data vault beneath Geneva, a single black cube pulsed once every hour. Inside it was the Ares Protocol, locked, sealed, and marked with a final classification. Only in the event of extinction. Humanity prayed it would never be opened again. Because now the galaxy knew. Earth had mastered peace. But it had never forgotten war.